The hospital was buzzing with its usual rhythm that morning. Nurses moved quickly through the long hallways, pushing carts filled with medicines and supplies. Doctors spoke softly with patients, checking charts and giving directions to families who waited anxiously for news about their loved ones. The smell of disinfectant lingered in the air, and the soft hum of machines mixed with the steady sound of footsteps and voices. It was just another busy day, until something unusual happened that none of them could have expected. The glass doors at the entrance suddenly slid open, and in ran a large German shepherd. The dog's sudden arrival startled the people in the waiting area. Some patients gasped, others clutched their bags and moved out of the way. Security guards who usually stood calmly at the front instantly became alert, wondering how the animal had entered without anyone noticing. A dog in a hospital was rare, and this one was not just wandering. It looked as if it had a purpose. Its sharp eyes scanned the surroundings, its paws hitting the cold hospital floor with firm determination. The German shepherd moved quickly, ignoring the confused voices calling out to stop it. Its tail was stiff, its ears alert, and there was something intense in the way it carried itself. People tried to block its way, but the dog dodged them with surprising speed, slipping between chairs, brushing past startled patients, and heading deeper inside. Nurses looked at each other, unsure whether they should call animal control or follow to see where the dog was going. There was no wildness in the animal's movement. Instead, there was urgency, as if it knew exactly where it needed to be. One nurse in particular, Emma, froze as soon as her eyes met the dog's. She was young but experienced, and she had worked long enough to know that sometimes strange things happened in hospitals, things that were hard to explain. Something about this dog made her heart beat faster. She could see the desperation in its eyes, and it felt more like a plea for help than an intrusion. For a moment she did not move, only watching as the dog rushed past the reception desk. Security guards tried again to stop the animal. "Hey, get that dog out of here!" one of them shouted, but the German shepherd slipped away, moving straight toward one of the corridors that led to the wards. Patients in wheelchairs and family members stepped aside quickly, whispering in surprise. A child pointed and laughed while his mother pulled him back, afraid of the large animal running loose. Yet strangely, the dog did not harm anyone. It never barked, it never growled. It simply ran with a focused drive as though guided by something invisible. Emma finally found her voice and hurried after the dog. She did not know why she was doing it, but something inside her told her that this was not just an accident. The German shepherd seemed to recognize the layout of the hospital, moving with surprising confidence. "Wait!" Emma called out, though she knew the dog would not understand. Still, her voice caught the attention of others, and soon a few more nurses and even a doctor followed behind, curious about where the dog was headed. The scene created a ripple of attention. Patients leaned out of their rooms to see what the commotion was about. Families paused in their conversations, watching with wide eyes as the animal ran past. The hospital, usually a place of order and rules, suddenly felt alive with something different, something emotional and unpredictable. Emma's footsteps echoed as she kept pace behind the dog. She noticed the way it turned corners, sniffed the air, and adjusted its path as though it was tracking something. Its movements were not random, it knew where it was going. She felt her throat tighten as a sudden thought crossed her mind. Could it be that this dog was connected to someone inside the hospital? As she ran, memories flickered in her mind. A few weeks earlier, a patient had been brought in, an older man who was quiet and serious. She remembered him because he had spoken about his German shepherd, the only companion he had at home. The man had told her that the dog was like his family, his protector, his only true friend. At the time, she had smiled politely, touched by the love in his voice, but she had not thought much more about it. Now, as she chased after the determined animal, her heart told her it might be the very same dog. The German shepherd turned sharply down a hallway that led to the intensive care unit. Nurses gasped as it rushed by, and one of them shouted at Emma, "Do you know this dog?" But she had no answer. All she could do was keep following. The dog's nails clicked against the floor as it slowed near a familiar section of the hospital. Its breathing was heavy, its body tense, but its eyes glowed with purpose. Emma finally caught up enough to be just a few steps behind. She could see the animal trembling slightly, not from fear but from sheer determination. She felt her chest tighten. Something was about to happen, something bigger than anyone in that hallway could understand. She tried to steady her breath as she followed the dog's every move, realizing that perhaps the reason for its sudden arrival was about to be revealed. The German Shepherd stopped for a moment, looked back at Emma as if asking her to trust it, then turned toward one of the ward doors. Emma froze, her pulse racing, her heart heavy with anticipation. Everyone around her stared, waiting for what would happen next. The dog's journey through the hospital had turned an ordinary morning into something unforgettable, and the reason behind it was still a mystery waiting to unfold. Emma stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding as she watched the German Shepherd sniff around the closed door. Its paws scratched softly against the surface, and its tail moved restlessly from side to side. The dog's eyes were full of urgency, as if it was silently begging to be let inside. Nurses and orderlies stood a few feet away, whispering nervously, unsure of what to do. Hospitals had strict rules. No animals were allowed inside, especially near the wards. Yet something about this moment made it impossible to act with cold rules alone. Emma took a cautious step closer, her voice soft. "It's okay. I know you're looking for someone." The German Shepherd turned its head sharply, locking eyes with her. There was no wildness there, no threat, only a raw emotion that she could not ignore. It was almost as if the animal understood her words. The dog whimpered, a sound so heart-piercing that Emma felt her chest tighten. It reminded her of someone crying quietly, holding pain that could not be spoken. Slowly she reached into her memory, trying to connect the pieces. A face came back to her, the elderly man with gray hair and strong eyes who had been admitted some weeks earlier. He was quiet, carrying himself like a man who had seen much of the world and survived it. She remembered how he had once mentioned his dog in a calm voice, saying, "That German Shepherd is my shadow. He never leaves me." Her eyes widened. Could it be? Was this the very same dog? If so, how had it managed to find its way inside the hospital, and more importantly, why now? Emma felt a lump rise in her throat. The old man had been a soldier, she recalled. The way he spoke about discipline, about comrades who never returned home, and about loyalty that went beyond words had made her respect him deeply. He had no wife or children. The dog had been his family for years. Now, seeing the German Shepherd here, pressing against his hospital room door, she realized the truth. This was not a random visit. This was a desperate search. "Emma, what's happening?" one of her colleagues whispered, tugging lightly on her sleeve. Another nurse frowned, worried. "We can't let a dog stay in here. It's against policy. What if the patients complain?" Emma didn't answer right away. She knew the rules better than anyone. She also knew that compassion often meant bending those rules for the right reason. Looking again at the dog, she felt her decision forming in her heart. This was no ordinary situation. The German Shepherd pawed at the door again, then sat down suddenly, its ears drooping, as though it understood it could not get inside. The sight was so heartbreaking that Emma's eyes filled with tears. She thought of her own past, of a golden retriever she had loved when she was a child. That dog had been her comfort during lonely nights, her silent listener and her protector. She remembered the day it had died after a sudden illness. The memory still hurt even after so many years. Watching the German Shepherd now brought all those emotions flooding back. "I think this dog belongs to Mr. Harris," Emma finally said in a trembling voice. "The man in this room?" The retired soldier. A silence fell among the staff. They all knew who she meant. Mr. Harris had been admitted weeks ago, suffering from complications related to his heart. He had been strong for his age, but the last few days his health had grown weaker. Everyone respected him, not only because of his military past, but also because of the quiet dignity he carried. "Are you sure?" one nurse asked, glancing nervously at the door. Emma nodded firmly. "Yes, I remember him talking about this dog. He said the German Shepherd was like his family. If this dog made it here, it's not by chance." The others exchanged looks, unsure, but Emma stepped forward, kneeling down in front of the animal. She gently placed her hand near its paw. The dog sniffed her hand and gave a small whine, its body trembling slightly. She could feel its fear, its desperation. "You're here for him, aren't you?" she whispered softly. The dog wagged its tail slowly, then pressed its nose against the door again. Emma stood up, her decision made. She turned to the others. "I'm going to let him in." "Just for a moment." Gasps rose from the staff. "Emma, you can't." "The supervisors will be furious. What if it causes problems?" but Emma shook her head. Sometimes rules can wait. This is about something bigger. Before anyone could stop her, she gently opened the door. The German Shepherd leapt up, its whole body alive with hope. It rushed inside the room and the staff hurried in behind it. Mr. Harris lay in the bed, his face pale, his breathing shallow. Machines beeped softly, marking his fragile condition. His eyes were closed, but the moment the German Shepherd reached his side, something remarkable happened. The dog climbed carefully onto the edge of the bed and pressed its head against his chest. At once, Mr. Harris stirred. His eyelids fluttered and a weak smile spread across his face. His trembling hand rose slowly, finding the dog's fur. A faint whisper escaped his lips. "Buddy, you came." Emma's heart broke and healed at the same time. Tears filled her eyes and she covered her mouth to hold back a sob. The other staff members stood frozen, some wiping their own tears. The scene before them was more powerful than any words could describe. The German Shepherd licked his owner's hand gently, as though trying to comfort him. The soldier's hand, though weak, rested firmly on the animal's head like it had done countless times before. It was as if the presence of his loyal companion gave him strength that no medicine could. Emma could not stop crying. It was not just the loyalty of the dog, it was the reminder that love and faithfulness existed even in the hardest times. In that small hospital room, something sacred had taken place. Rules no longer mattered. What mattered was the bond between a man and his best friend. A bond so deep that it had led the dog straight through the doors of a hospital to find him. The nurse felt her heart swell with respect and sorrow at the same time. She realized then that the German Shepherd had not come by accident. It had been called by something greater than instinct, perhaps by love itself. And though Emma knew the supervisors would soon arrive and demand an explanation, she also knew she would stand by her choice. For what she had witnessed that day was proof of something the world too often forgot. Loyalty has no boundaries, and love never asks for permission. The hospital room was filled with a silence so heavy that even the beeping machine seemed quieter than usual. The German Shepherd lay close to Mr. Harris, his body pressed against the side of the bed, refusing to move. The dog's eyes never left its master's face, as if guarding him from slipping further into the shadows of unconsciousness. Nurses and doctors stood at a respectful distance, whispering among themselves, but no one dared to disturb the bond they were witnessing. Emma stood near the door, her hands clasped together tightly. Her heart was racing. She had seen many patients come and go during her years of service, but this moment was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It wasn't just about medicine or treatment. It was about something greater, something she could not explain with logic. The presence of the German Shepherd had changed everything. Suddenly, the machines gave a warning sound. The monitor that tracked Mr. Harris's heartbeat showed irregular lines. The soft beeping became rapid and sharp. Nurses rushed closer and one of the doctors ordered, "Prepare for emergency support." The room instantly transformed into a scene of controlled chaos. Carts of equipment were rolled in, gloves snapped onto hands, and voices filled the air with urgent instructions. Through it all, the German Shepherd stayed still, but alert. Its ears twitched at the noise and its body trembled slightly, but it never left its master's side. When the staff tried to move the dog away, it let out a low whine, refusing to budge. Emma stepped in quickly, raising her hand to stop them. "Let him stay," she said firmly. "He's not in the way." The other staff hesitated but obeyed. Something about Emma's voice carried certainty, and deep down they all understood this dog belonged here. The medical team worked swiftly. Oxygen was adjusted, intravenous lines were checked, and medications were prepared. Mr. Harris's breathing was shallow, his chest rising and falling with visible struggle. His skin looked pale, his lips dry. Emma felt her own chest tighten as she realized how close he was to slipping away. Then something remarkable happened. The German Shepherd placed its paw gently on Mr. Harris's arm, as if to remind him that he was not alone. In that moment, the soldier's eyes flickered open again. They were weak, clouded with exhaustion, but they focused on the animal beside him. A faint whisper escaped his lips, "Buddy." The dog leaned closer, pressing its nose against his hand. The nurses gasped quietly. It seemed impossible, but there was no denying what they were seeing. The man responded more to his dog's touch than to any medicine. Emma felt tears stream down her face, blurring her vision. She had seen technology keep patients alive, but rarely had she seen love itself pull someone back from the edge. The doctor leaned over Mr. Harris, checking the monitors again. "Stabilize him," he ordered, though his voice carried a note of wonder. The readings began to improve slightly. His heartbeat, though irregular, found a steadier rhythm. His breathing grew less shallow. No one could explain it, but everyone in that room knew what was giving him strength: the presence of his loyal companion. Emma could no longer hold back her emotions. She turned her face slightly, covering her mouth with her hand as tears slipped through. She remembered her childhood dog once more, the golden retriever who had stayed by her side during every heartbreak and every lonely night. She remembered how that dog had seemed to know when she was sad, how it would rest its head on her lap and refuse to move until she smiled again. Watching Mr. Harris and his German Shepherd now was like watching her own memories come alive. As the minutes passed, Mr. Harris whispered more, though his voice was faint. He spoke to his dog, words only the two of them seemed to understand. The German Shepherd wagged its tail gently, responding with small movements of its head. It was a silent language, but one that spoke louder than anything else in the room. Some of the hospital staff, hardened by years of witnessing suffering, wiped their eyes. Even the doctor, who was usually strict and professional, paused for a moment, staring at the dog with softened eyes. It was as if the entire hospital had been reminded of something simple yet powerful: that compassion could be as healing as medicine. But the situation was still serious. Mr. Harris's condition remained fragile. The doctor explained quietly, "He is fighting, but his heart is weak. We must prepare for any outcome." His words carried weight, and Emma felt the heaviness settle on her shoulders. Still, she refused to give up hope. The German Shepherd suddenly shifted, standing tall beside the bed. Its body stiffened, ears pointed forward, and it gave a sharp bark. The sudden sound startled everyone, but Emma felt goosebumps rise on her skin. The dog was reacting to something unseen, as if warning them of danger. Seconds later, the monitor alarms blared again. Mr. Harris's heart rate dropped sharply. "Code blue," the doctor shouted. The room erupted into urgent motion once more. Nurses hurried with equipment, preparing to resuscitate him. The German Shepherd barked again, louder, its body trembling with anxiety. Emma stepped close to calm it, her own tears flowing freely. "Stay strong," she whispered, both to the dog and to the man lying in the bed. The doctors worked with steady hands, their training guiding them through the crisis. The minutes felt endless. The dog cried softly, a sound of helpless sorrow that pierced every heart in the room. Emma knelt down, wrapping her arms around the animal's neck, holding it close so it wouldn't leap onto the bed in panic. The dog buried its face against her, its body shaking as if sharing its grief with her. Then, against all odds, the steady beeping of the monitor returned. Mr. Harris's heartbeat was faint, but there. The relief in the room was immediate. Exhales of breath, whispers of thanks, and tears of joy. The German Shepherd pulled away from Emma and rushed back to the bedside, pressing itself once more against its master. Emma felt drained, but also filled with awe. She had just witnessed a moment that went beyond science. This was not just survival. It was love refusing to let go. As the tension eased, the nurse wiped her tears and looked around the room. She realized every single person present had been touched by what they saw. Some would return to their duties with heavy hearts, others with a renewed sense of compassion. But none of them would ever forget this day. For Emma, it was a turning point. She had always believed in the importance of medical care, but now she understood something even deeper. Healing was not only about medicine, it was about connection, loyalty, and the invisible threads that tied people to one another. The German Shepherd lay down once more, its head resting near Mr. Harris's hand. The man's breathing steadied, and though his eyes remained closed, there was a peace about his face. Emma knew the fight was not over, but in that moment, hope filled the room like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. The story of the dog's sudden arrival spread quickly through the hospital. Patients who had caught glimpses whispered about it. Families told one another with astonishment, and even staff who had not been there listened in awe as the tale grew. The image of a dog rushing through the hospital doors, leading everyone to a man in need, became something people would talk about for years. And in the middle of it all, Emma stood silently, her heart full. She had burst into tears earlier when she saw the bond between man and dog, but now she understood why. It was not just a story of loyalty. It was a reminder that even in the most sterile, rule-bound places, love could break through barriers. And sometimes it arrived on four paws with a wagging tail and eyes filled with devotion. The night inside the hospital grew heavier with silence after the chaos that had shaken the ward. The monitors beeped softly again, steadier than before, but everyone knew the danger had not passed. Mr. Harris was still weak, and every breath he took was a reminder of the fine line between life and death. The German Shepherd remained at his side, refusing to move, its chest rising and falling in rhythm with its master's. The dog's loyalty created an invisible shield of comfort around the fragile man, and those who entered the room could feel it without needing words. Emma stayed close, her heart restless. She had been a nurse for years, but tonight she felt like more than just a nurse. She felt like a witness to something sacred. She watched as the dog lay with its head on the edge of the bed, its eyes never leaving the soldier's face. Every now and then it let out a quiet whine, as though reminding everyone that it was still watching, still protecting. The hours stretched on, and fatigue crept over the staff, but no one dared to remove the dog. Rules had melted away in the face of such devotion. Even the head nurse, who was usually strict about hospital policies, came into the room, saw the scene, and quietly walked away without saying a word. Something about this moment had softened even the hardest hearts. Emma sat by the window for a moment, resting her tired body. The lights from outside the hospital flickered faintly. Cars passed now and then, and the world seemed to continue as usual. Yet inside this single room, time felt different. She thought about how unexpected life could be. One minute, a hospital was filled with routine tasks. The next, it was transformed by the sudden arrival of a dog and the story of love that followed. She looked again at the man in the bed. His breaths were shallow but steady. His hand still rested on the fur of his companion. It was as if the German Shepherd had become part of his treatment, an unspoken medicine that no doctor could prescribe, but everyone could see working. Emma felt tears prick her eyes again, but this time they were mixed with hope. Suddenly, the monitors let out another sharp alarm. Mr. Harris's heart rate began to falter again. Nurses rushed in, their training guiding them through the emergency. The room filled with hurried footsteps, urgent voices, and the sounds of equipment being adjusted. The German Shepherd rose quickly, barking once in panic. Then, standing guard beside the bed, Emma placed her hand on the dog's back, whispering, "It's okay, stay with him." The dog trembled but stayed where it was, its eyes locked on the soldier's face. Doctors worked quickly, giving instructions and trying to stabilize him again. The tension was so thick that even the air felt heavy. Every second seemed stretched, every beep of the monitor louder than the last. The German Shepherd let out a soft howl, a sound so full of sorrow that everyone in the room felt it pierce their hearts. Emma could hardly hold her tears. She stroked the dog's fur, whispering words she hoped would comfort both the animal and herself. "Don't give up. He's still here. Stay strong." Minutes passed like hours, but finally the readings on the monitor began to rise again. The soldier's heart found its rhythm once more, though weak and fragile. The relief that swept over the room was almost overwhelming. Some of the nurses exhaled deeply, one even wiping her eyes quickly before stepping back. Emma looked at the German Shepherd and realized the truth. This dog was fighting just as hard as the doctors. It couldn't use machines or medicine, but it poured out loyalty and love so powerful that it gave its master the strength to hold on. She whispered softly, "You're his soldier now, aren't you? You're guarding him the way he once guarded others." Hours slipped into the early morning. Outside, the sky began to lighten with the first touch of dawn. The city stirred awake, but inside the hospital room, the atmosphere remained still and watchful. Emma noticed how even visitors in nearby rooms walked past quietly, speaking in whispers, as if the presence of the dog had created a sacred silence across the ward. At one point, Emma dozed lightly in her chair, only to be awakened by the gentle sound of the German Shepherd nudging her hand. She looked up to see the animal's eyes fixed on her, almost as though asking her not to leave them alone. She smiled faintly, patting its head. "Don't worry, I'm here too." In those quiet hours, Emma thought about the soldier's life. She imagined the years of service, the battles he must have fought, the comrades he must have lost. She thought about how he had returned home, not to a family of children or a wife, but to a loyal dog who never left his side. And now, at the end of his strength, It was that same dog that had broken through barriers and rushed into the hospital, determined to stay with him. The loyalty of the animal humbled her. Humans often struggled with promises, often failed each other, but here was a creature who kept its vow without ever speaking a word. She realized the lesson before her. Love was not about words, but about presence. About showing up, even when everything else said you could not. Near dawn, the doctors returned to check on Mr. Harris. They examined him carefully and gave quiet updates. His condition was still critical, but for now he was stable. One of the doctors, known for being stern, paused as he looked at the German Shepherd. He shook his head slowly, his eyes softer than usual. "I don't know how to explain it, but that dog is doing something none of us can. Maybe he wouldn't still be here without it." Emma felt pride swell in her chest, though tears still ran freely. She reached down to stroke the dog's fur again. "You're his miracle," she whispered. The hours that followed were filled with both tension and peace. The soldier drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes squeezing the dog's fur faintly, sometimes whispering words too quiet for anyone else to hear. The dog never moved far, even refusing food and water, as though it feared that stepping away might allow something terrible to happen. By afternoon, the story had spread across the hospital. Patients spoke of the German Shepherd who had rushed through the doors as though sent by fate. Visitors paused by the window of the room, some whispering prayers, others simply watching with tearful eyes. Even staff members from other wards came by quietly, wanting to catch a glimpse of the loyalty they had heard about. Emma noticed how the entire hospital seemed to have changed. The usual sense of hurry, of routine, of stress had softened. People were speaking more gently to one another, smiling more, showing kindness they might have otherwise forgotten in the rush of their duties. It was as if the dog's love had rippled outward, touching everyone. That night, as Emma prepared to end her shift, she looked one last time at the soldier and his faithful companion. The German Shepherd lifted its head, meeting her gaze. In its eyes, she saw gratitude. She knew the fight was far from over, but she also knew they were not fighting alone. Emma stepped quietly out of the room, her heart heavy, yet full. She had witnessed the kind of love that could not be measured, a loyalty that could not be broken. It was a story she would carry with her forever, and one that had already changed everyone around it. And as the night fell again, the soldier and his dog continued their silent struggle together, man and companion, bound not by rules or logic but by something far greater, the unshakable strength of love and loyalty. The sun rose gently over the hospital the next morning, casting soft rays of light through the windows of the ward. The brightness touched every corner of the room, falling across the machines, the sheets, and finally settling on the tired face of Mr. Harris. His breaths were still weak, his body still fragile, but there was a calmness around him that had not been there before. By his side, as always, lay the German Shepherd, its eyes half closed but its ears alert, never truly resting. The dog had not left him once, not even for a moment, as though it feared losing him if it did. Emma entered quietly, carrying a tray with water and fresh bandages. She paused when she saw the sight before her. Mr. Harris's hand was resting lightly on the dog's fur, and though he seemed half asleep, there was the faintest trace of peace on his face. Emma felt her heart grow warm. It was clear that the man was not alone. He had his most faithful companion right beside him. "Good morning," she whispered softly, not wanting to disturb them. The German Shepherd lifted its head, its eyes meeting hers, then gave a small wag of its tail before lowering its head again. Emma smiled. It was as if the dog understood her words. As the day went on, the hospital filled with its usual rhythm of noise and activity, but the story of the soldier and his dog continued to spread. Families in waiting rooms whispered about it. Patients told each other with teary eyes, and staff from other departments came by the ward, hoping to catch even a small glimpse of the loyal animal. It was not every day that a dog burst into a hospital and became part of a patient's fight for life. The story had touched everyone. That afternoon, Mr. Harris opened his eyes more fully than he had in days. His voice was weak and raspy, but his words were clear. "Buddy," he whispered, "you found me." His hand stroked the German Shepherd's fur slowly, and the dog responded with a gentle lick to his arm. The connection between them was so strong that even those who only watched felt their eyes grow wet with emotion. Emma stepped closer, speaking softly. "You're stronger today, Mr. Harris. He gave you the will to fight, didn't he? The old soldier turned his head slightly toward her, his lips trembling into a faint smile. He always has, he whispered. When I was out there, when the nights were long, he was my guard. When I came home to silence, he was my family. And now even here, he didn't leave me. Emma felt tears forming again, but she blinked them away. She didn't want to cry in front of him, though her heart was overflowing. She realized in that moment that this man had lived a life of sacrifice, giving himself to his country, and yet, when he returned, it was this loyal companion who gave him the family he never had. Word reached the hospital director, and soon, a small group of administrators arrived at the ward. At first, there was concern about rules being broken, but when they stepped inside and saw the scene, their voices softened. None of them could bring themselves to remove the dog. Instead, they agreed quietly that sometimes compassion was more important than rules. They left as quietly as they had come, carrying the story further into the world outside. That evening, as the sun began to set, the ward was filled with an unusual warmth. The German Shepherd remained pressed close to its master, and Mr. Harris seemed to gain small bursts of strength each time he touched the dog. Emma stayed longer than her shift required, sitting quietly in the corner of the room. She wanted to be there, not just as a nurse, but as someone who had been deeply touched by what she had seen. She thought back to her own past again, remembering the golden retriever she had lost as a child. For years she had carried that pain, never speaking about it much, but now she felt as though life had brought her a gift, a chance to witness the same kind of bond in another form. She realized that love never truly left. It simply took new shapes, appearing when we least expected it. As night settled in, Mr. Harris stirred again. His voice was faint, but he looked at Emma and whispered, "Promise me something." Emma leaned closer, her heart trembling. "Yes, anything," she said. "If I can't—" "Stay," he murmured, his eyes glancing at the German Shepherd. "Make sure he's not alone." His hand trembled as he rested it on the dog's back. "He's given me everything. He deserves love even when I'm gone." Emma felt her tears fall freely now. She nodded firmly. "I promise. He will never be alone." The German Shepherd seemed to understand because it lifted its head, looking into Emma's eyes for a long moment, as though sealing the promise. She reached out and stroked its fur gently, whispering, "I'll take care of you, no matter what." The hours that followed were quiet but heavy with emotion. Mr. Harris drifted in and out of sleep, but every time he stirred, the dog was there, steady and loyal. Nurses came and went. Doctors checked his condition, but nothing broke the unshakable bond between man and dog. At dawn, something extraordinary happened. Mr. Harris opened his eyes fully and spoke more clearly than before. His voice was still weak, but it carried a strength of spirit. "Thank you," he said, his eyes moving between Emma and the German Shepherd, "for letting him be here, for letting me see what matters most." The German Shepherd barked softly, a sound full of warmth, then rested its head against his chest. Emma stood by the window, her tears flowing freely. She realized that this was more than just a story about survival. It was a story about love that refused to be broken, even by the walls of a hospital or the shadow of death. In the days that followed, Mr. Harris's condition remained fragile, but he never faced it alone. His faithful companion stayed by his side, and the hospital staff, once so strict about rules, began to welcome the dog as if it were part of the team. Visitors smiled when they saw it, children waved shyly, and patients whispered prayers for the soldier and his loyal friend. Emma carried the memory with her, knowing it would stay in her heart forever. She had seen many things in her career, but never had she witnessed love so pure and devotion so unshakable. And so, the story of the German Shepherd who rushed into the hospital became more than just a moment. It became a symbol, a reminder that loyalty can move hearts, love can break rules, and sometimes the most powerful medicine comes not from a bottle or machine, but from the silent bond between a man and his faithful companion.